Sonic, the heart of your system.
Hi guys, it's Silas from Kit Guru, and today I'll be taking a look at the brand new Be Quiet Dark Rock Slim CPU cooler. Now, a lot of the Be Quiet coolers I've had the pleasure of testing recently have been much larger kind of dual fan monstrosities designed with both high performance and low audible noise in mind. The Dark Rock Pro being the first that comes to mind, really. Although I was pretty impressed with just how effectively they cooled our test bench 7700K CPU, even when overclocking, the main difficulty I found was sourcing smaller cases that offered the correct clearances for installing such a large CPU cooler. The Dark Rock Slim, on the other hand, offers a lot of the more premium features of, say, the Dark Rock Pro, but in a much smaller package, and with an MSRP in the UK of £54.99, a somewhat more accessible price point. So let's take a look. Opening everything up and diving into the box, we find a set of installation instructions, an accessory box filled with mounting hardware for current Intel and AMD mounts, along with some thermal compound, and a couple of sets of fan mounts. Great to see as it allows a second fan to be installed down the road for maybe say like a push-pull configuration. The cooler itself is packed in soft foam, which should prevent any damage in transit, and upon opening we find the cooler along with the Silent Wings 3 120mm PWM fan. This is the exact same 120mm fan you'll find included with the Dark Rock Pro, and Be Quiet suggests that its inclusion should offer almost completely silent operation, only about 23.6 dBA even when running at 100%. As mentioned, it's a PWM fan, so as expected we find the 4-pin fan connection, and the cable is braided too, which is also great to see for an overall slightly cleaner aesthetic. With the cooler out of the box, we can get a better look at its construction. Firstly, the all blacked out aesthetic looks really clean and certainly very premium. This coating also has ceramic particles mixed in, so the fact that the cooler is painted shouldn't really hinder heat transfer. As the name suggests, the Dark Rock Slim is quite a bit smaller than the Dark Rock Pro, and does feel basically like any other standard 120mm cooler. The most similar I've tested that comes to mind being something like the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Black Edition. Dimension-wise, the Dark Rock Slim comes in at 50 by 127 by 159.4mm, and when compared to the Hyper 212 at 54.6 by 120 by 158.8, they're basically the same sort of size, with the Dark Rock Slim a little bit taller and maybe a little bit wider. The Dark Rock Slim also features the same kind of 4 heat pipe configuration and is rated for up to a 180 watt TDP, so it'll be really interesting to see how the Slim compares in performance terms in our testing. The top of the cooler also looks really good with a brushed aluminium top cover with a diamond cut finish. When installed, this is going to be really the most visual part of the cooler, so just as with the Dark Rock Pro, it's nice to see that Be Quiet's attention to detail has been applied here. So the Dark Rock Slim certainly looks the part, and it's great to see that a nice high quality Silent Wings 3 fan is packed in the box, along with nice additions like a second set of mounts for adding even like another fan. Moving on to installation, it's also nice to see that all the mounting hardware is separately bagged and all clearly labelled. As we test CPU coolers on the Z170 platform, I'll be following the Intel installation instructions. Starting with the backplate, there are 4 slightly longer screws which need to be passed through each corner of the backplate and held in place with 4 rubber O-rings. Once this is in place, the backplate is prepared, it can then be fitted to the rear of the motherboard, and to hold it firmly in place, 4 threaded standoffs can be screwed onto each of the corner screws. There are 2 further brackets which then need to be fitted. It's also worth noting that their orientation will dictate the direction the cooler will be facing. Just as with all air coolers, the Dark Rock Slim was positioned as though the fan was kind of blowing air out towards the rear of a PC case. These 2 brackets sit atop the 4 threaded standoffs and mounted down using 4 small included screws. With the bracket fitted to the motherboard, the cooler itself can be mounted, starting with the cooler mounting bridge. This bridge needs to be passed through the bottom of the cooler, and with this in place you can apply your thermal compound, place the cooler atop your CPU, lining the mounting bridge up to the main bracket, and screw the cooler down using a further 2 screws. With the cooler mounted, you could then attach the included Silent Wings 3 fan with 2 of the included wire brackets and plug the 4-pin PWM cable into your CPU fan header. The installation process does have a few stages to it and took roughly about 10 minutes or so. Installation does very closely follow other Be Quiet coolers I've tested, like the Dark Rock Pro, and initially struck me as maybe a little bit overkill for this much smaller and lighter cooler. This being said though, it's a pretty reassuring mount process, and considering it's capable of holding the larger and heavier Dark Rock Pro in place, the Dark Rock Slim shouldn't be going anywhere. With the cooler mounted and the fan installed, the benefit of the slim nature of the cooler becomes a little bit clearer. Straight away, taking a look at the cooler from a side profile, the fan doesn't overhang any of our motherboard memory slots, and even when installing higher profile memory, DIMMs were easily able to fit in the closest memory slot with a gap of a few millimeters between the memory modules and the Dark Rock Slim's fan. This is certainly great from a compatibility standpoint, basically giving you absolute free reign when choosing a memory kit. Comparing this to, say, the Dark Rock Pro, which I found to really only be compatible with lower profile memory modules, it's really nice to see a bit more flexibility here. So with the cooler mounted, we can move over to our testing. At KitGuru we test temperatures on the Z170 platform, and for our CPU we are testing with the Intel Core i7 7700K installed in an Asus Z170 Pro gaming motherboard. For RAM we have a single 8GB stick of Guile Evo X RGB that's running at 3200 MHz, and storage is handled by a 120GB SanDisk SSD Plus. Powering our bench is a Seasonic Prime Platinum 650W PSU. When testing we take a number of readings with the i7 7700K's turbo locked, overclocked to 4.5 GHz and 5 GHz as well. The temperatures taken are all delta T values, which means we subtract the ambient temperature from the CPU temperature. More details of our full testing methodology can be found over on kitguru.net. So let's take a look at our results, starting with our 7700K at stock speeds. At 4 GHz under load, unfortunately the Dark Rock Slim's performance isn't particularly groundbreaking, and it sits alongside similarly sized 120mm coolers like the MA410P. 38.2 degrees is certainly a little bit hotter than most other recorded temps, but an idle of about 8.5 degrees is a little bit better to see. Moving on to 4.5 GHz, it's basically the same story. The Dark Rock Slim doesn't move at all, still just outperforming its closest competitors from Cooler Master. 63.6 degrees at full load does keep the Slim third from the bottom of our list, with temperatures idling still a little bit hotter than most tested coolers at 13.2 degrees. At 5 GHz, things do look a little bit better as the Dark Rock Slim starts to move its way up our cooler list. 72.4 degrees at load is much better to see here, and has the Slim outperforming basically every comparable 120mm air cooler tested so far. Idle temperatures are still a little bit higher here, but with only a variance of a handful of degrees between our lowest recorded temps at idle and highest temps, this to me isn't really a huge deal and is overshadowed a little bit by these improved load temps. The big one for me though was our noise testing. The Be Quiet Dark Rock Slim was barely audible throughout all of my testing, and to see it at the top of our list really wasn't that surprising. As I say, not really much of a surprise when you look at the Silent Wings 3 fan specs with a max RPM of 1450. There are a couple of coolers which caught my eye when looking through the testing results. Firstly, of course, the closest comparable cooler in appearance and size, the Hyper 212 Black Edition. The Hyper 212 outperformed the Dark Rock Slim both at stock and at 4.5 GHz, which was, again, a little bit surprising, but checking through some of the specs, the 212's fan can operate a little bit faster at 2000 RPM, so to me this does kind of make sense. The Alpen von Brocken 3 is also an interesting one to look at, as the Dark Rock Slim consistently performed basically the same throughout our temperature testing, and the same is true of the audible noise as well. This is actually pretty impressive when you consider how much larger the Alpen von Brocken 3 is when compared to the Dark Rock Slim, basically offering very similar temps and audible noise as a 140mm air cooler. So, summary time. Now initially when unboxing the Dark Rock Slim, and with it in the hand, I was actually pretty impressed. There's no skimping on quality and it feels just as well built as other Be Quiet coolers like the Dark Rock Pro I've tested previously. It definitely feels ultra solid and really premium, and this is helped by the all blacked out aesthetic, little perks like the inclusion of the second set of fan mounts, and the in-the-box high quality Silent Wings 3 fan is also great to see. It's not really a cooler designed for say like ultra small form factor builds, but the better RAM compatibility and smaller height when compared to say the Dark Rock Pro does make choosing other components for your build a little bit easier and quicker too, saving you from poring through too many tech specs to ensure everything will fit as it should. I will admit I was a little bit put off when looking through the testing results, but then considering the cooler's dimensions and that at the end of the day it is just a single 120mm fan cooler, these results do make a little bit more sense, and where the Dark Rock Slim really shines is in its audible noise, where it's the quietest cooler tested to date. So who is the Dark Rock Slim for? Well, realistically, if you are planning on some serious overclocking, you would probably be much better off with something bigger or an AIO cooler. With the continued improvements in case compatibility for AIO coolers, even if space is a constraint, you'd probably still be okay with a 120 or 240mm AIO. This being said, extra moving parts do increase the number of potential points of failure, so the Dark Rock Slim could still be seen as a safer option for longevity. If you're on a super strict budget, considering the Hyper 212 Black Edition is available today for around about £30 or so and still has a pretty clean all black look, then this looks like a better option. And considering these similarities in performance, you wouldn't really be losing out on too much. This being said, it's not like the extra £20 hasn't gone anywhere. At £54.99, the Dark Rock Slim is certainly better built than the 212 Black Edition, with better accessories and a much higher quality fan. So for those that are really trying to minimise their PC's footprint by sticking with a more mid-tower or even some kind of smaller form factor case, if you value high build quality, you want no hassle compatibility, and most importantly, quiet operation, then the Dark Rock Slim actually makes a lot of sense. If those requirements sound like they fit the bill for you, then I would definitely take a look at the Dark Rock Slim. I will say with absolute certainty that including it in your system will make for an almost silent PC. As always though, let us know what you think. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like or even comment down below with your thoughts. If you haven't already, you can go ahead and click subscribe to stay up to date with the Kit Guru channel, and make sure to click the bell icon as well for notifications when new videos go live. If you would like to support Kit Guru further, there are a couple of ways to do so. You can check out our Patreon page below, or even our new merch store, which is also linked below. I've been Silas from Kit Guru, and I will see you in the next one.